welcome to this week's edition of WCS Sports Connection. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Qualls, and with me as always is my co-host, Tate Mathews. Tate, it's moving week, man. There's a lot going on this week. This is going to pretty much separate who's going to make the playoffs, or at least give us a playoff picture of what's fixing to happen. A lot of things can happen after the fact, but this week is a huge week for the WCS Sports Conference.
Yep, big for everybody. Franklin and Ravenwood, they're the only ones. They're all big for them. They're the only ones that don't really have to worry about that part of it. They're in, but they're playing for seeding. And so you're right, big week, and I'm glad we're back to it. It didn't quite feel right last week with about half the teams are off on a bye week. So I'm glad we're back to having everybody playing, and it's the home stretch. Going to be exciting.
We got a full slate of games this week. Before we get into that, let's talk real quick about what's happened in the WCS Sports Conference. The Golf District Championships have happened on the Big Six as well as the other two schools, but I do have information on the Big Six because it happened this week. The boys' team winner was Franklin. Franklin upset Brentwood this week. On the girls' side, the Brentwood Lady Bruins won the district golf championship. And here are your top three. On the girls' side, Emma Phillips from Brentwood High School and Catherine Blackburn, Wilco recipient. In second for Ravenwood, and third, another Wilco nominee, Annie Paris from Brentwood High School. On the boys' side, Michael Shears from Franklin High. Let me just tell you, Tate, he shot a 69. If you don't know that in golf, that is really, really good. 72 par, 3 under. That's very stout. Trenton Johnson looking for going back to the state tournament for 2 years in a row. Brentwood High School shoots even par, 72. Addison Carney from Franklin High, 74. When they get into region play, it is going to be interesting to see. They're going to have to fight it out. Only one gets to go from region play. Franklin High, Brentwood High boys. That'll be interesting to see who wins that matchup, as well as on the girls' side. But congratulations to them. We do have Director Cup points being awarded. Still a ton to go. We haven't gotten factored in, obviously, the individual state golf participants or the teams. But right now, as it sits, Brentwood High in first place with 44 points. Second place, Franklin High with 40. Third place right now, Ravenwood with 28. Fourth place, Indy, 19. Summit, 16. Centennial, 11. That's in the Big Six right now. Tons of points still going in just within golf, but that is the early Director Cup point standings.
Yeah, pretty neat. That's big by Franklin. I don't know when the last time Franklin won the district tournament on the boys' side was, but I'm guessing it's been a while. So congratulations to Coach Whipple. Maybe he'll just become a full-time golf coach. He's also the baseball coach, but great job by him. That's very impressive, and you can see how big of a swing that makes in the Director Cup standings. All
right, let's get into this past week's conference play. Right now, it's pretty amazing when you look at it, Tate. Non-conference play. 21-4, the WCS Sports Conference is when they play outside. Pretty much predominantly from this point forward out is non-conference play, with the exception of Centennial Brentwood having to play each other. But this is all non-conference play from here out. We currently sit 21-4. We went 4-0 this past week.
Yeah, that's big. We got a lot of great teams, and it's fun to watch that. Especially, we talk about the really in the 6A. There's some other conferences that kind of try to take claim to that, but last 2 years I'd say the bragging rights are here, and that's neat to see.
All right, so let's look at the games from this past week. Brentwood moves to 3-3, gets themselves to 500, 2-1 in region, which is so important at this point in time. They beat Northeast 41-26. What do we know about that game?
Well, it was a tough game. Northeast is a team that's very athletic. They've got some very, very explosive guys, and it was a game that they could have put away. They didn't put away. Northeast in the second half cut it to 28-26. They had an 80-yard run, an 81-yard pass play, which, I know Coach Crawford wasn't very happy about that. If they can, there's just so many things that if they can just get things that can be corrected, which there are things that can be corrected, if they can get those corrected, they're really close to being a good football team. But you got to love the way that they fought back. They didn't fold their tent, and then they ended up getting a nice 41-26 victory. But it got close in the second half. Carson Shacklet, a guy I've been talking about all year, he keeps getting better. 4 touchdowns, total touchdowns, 3 of them rushing, 1 of them passing to Christian LaBreche on another long pass play for him. He's becoming quite the weapon, so it's fun to watch him get better. Tucker Day, 42 and 43-yard field goals. What a weapon that is, and it goes without saying what a weapon he is on the kick-off team, because against an athletic team like that, he takes away the threat of a return. So a lot of guys played well. They just, if you listen to Coach Crawford, they're kind of, I don't want to say sloppy, that he feels like they're undisciplined in a lot of areas. But those are things that can fix. And again, I don't care who it's again, 41 points, that's a pretty good night. So a lot of positives, some things that they need to correct, but they're all correctable.
Well, speaking of the quarterback, Carson Shacklett, that brings us to the WCTV Play of the Week, where Carson Shacklett options to Mathews Phillips for this touchdown.
Down to about the 14. This isn't even funny right now. Shacklett, oh, what a great job by Shacklett. You cannot say enough about that. Ooh,
give it to him.
Man alive. He got
Great
around
read.
the edge and went straight upfield, and a lot of quarterbacks at that point are not going to pitch that ball. As soon as he saw his man peel off the pitch man, he kicked it out. And man, oh, great job by Shacklett.
Nice
Excellent
job.
job. Phillips did a good job of getting that end zone.
Well, as you can see right there, that's just a weapon in that offense. You pass it, you run it, then all of a sudden you roll out the quarterback. That linebacker on the containment comes up. We pitch it out on the option for the touchdown. Explain to the viewers that option-styled offense. Franklin also runs a lot of option things, what that brings to the table.
Well, it's a little bit different how they do it, but it makes you hear Coach Hester every time he's on here talk about assignment football. It makes you play assignment football. Shacklett did a great job with it. And the thing I loved about it the most is if you know anything about the option, when you're coaching it, they talk about the quarterback-to-pitch relationship. Keep the quarterback-to-pitch relationship. And Mathews Phillips did a great job of that. That was the best part about it to me. Shacklett comes out. He splits the two defenders. The outside one comes to him. Had Phillips quit running his arc, he wouldn't have been there for the pitch. He kept his relationship, got the pitch to him, big play. So that was very nice to see. But as the passing game comes along, that's a heck of a wrinkle to throw in there at him. And so it just makes you be disciplined. It makes you play assignment football. You can have two of those guys are over there. One of them did what he was supposed to do. The other didn't. You saw what happened.
Well, like I said, Brentwood moves to 3-3, 2-1 in the region. Do not count the Bruins out. Coach Crawford has got the wagons are circled. He's there now. It has not been an ideal year for him, but he can make up for all that come postseason. And we'll get to that in the second half of the show in the Adidas Crystal Ball section of the show, looking at the games coming forward and what's left in region play. But right now he's sitting 2-1 in region play.
Real quick, I was really worried about the gold on gold. I think it looks really, really good. If you saw it in that clip, the gold jerseys on gold pants, I really like it. They might be on something there.
The Vegas gold. If I'm not mistaken, Brentwood wore the Vegas gold in the Battle of the Woods as well.
They wore the Vegas gold in white pants on Friday night, came back out in gold on gold on Saturday night.
That's my point.
That's right.
And when they went in with the white pants, it was 10-10.
10-10.
When they came out with all Vegas gold, what happened? What was the final score?
31 unanswered points.
Well, okay. All right, Centennial. What an underdog story right now. They still considered underdogs, and I love it. Stay under the radar, Coach Kreisky. Congratulations, Coach Kreisky, by the way. Had a child this past weekend. Him and the mom was doing fine. Baby's doing fine. Congratulations to him. He's sitting 5-1, 3-0. New child. Life could not be better for Coach Kreisky right now. Beats West Creek 37-0.
Yeah, and it could have been worse. You know, this was a team that a game where they got up big very early on in the third quarter and started subbing, got to be a running clock. So, running clock. And some of the same things that they've kept building on the past few weeks. You saw it again, Jario Wilson, the sophomore. He is going to be a heck of a player, man. And don't forget, we still got Zion Lee coming back. So he keeps getting better. What an athlete he is. He does some things you can tell he's just an athlete. You know, some of the runs that he makes. Trey Stewart continuing to get better, 250 passing yards. I'm assuming he didn't play in the fourth quarter. 3 touchdowns. And then his 2 number 1 guys on the outside, Austin Waddell and Tavion Fleming, both get Waddell had 2 receiving touchdowns. Fleming had 1 receiving touchdown. So both of them got into the end zone. Waddell, 2 receptions for 100 yards. That's a pretty good average per catch. So they just keep getting better on the offensive side, and the more balanced they are, the better that passing attack gets. We already know they can run the ball. They're going to be really hard to defend come later on in the year. And the defense playing well. I believe Centurion DeRoe was the leading tackler, if not the leading tackler, the second leading tackler. Again, this is all in about 2.5 quarters of play.
Well, let's think about this, too. I mean, I know it sounds redundant. Think about what they lost on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we can't say enough about what they lost, Tyrell Dotson, et cetera, and all his guys that left with him. But they hold this offense to 34 total yards, 22 passing, 12 rushing. You got the names, the usual suspects, if you will, Clay Carter, DeRoe, all those guys right now playing really, really good football. I know that he has to be ecstatic, not just with the offensive side of what they're doing, but defensively. Right now, the Centennial Cougars, do not sleep on them, but they're having, big games are ahead for them as well, and we'll talk about that when we get into that later section. But right now, as it sits, Centennial is looking pretty good.
Oh, yeah, and the thing I love about it, Coach Kreisky's a DB coach. That's his deal. When he was a position coach, that's what he coached, and it's still his passion. I mean, they got some guys that are some ball hawks back in that secondary. So, obviously, West Creek didn't throw the ball very much Friday night and didn't have a whole lot of an opportunity to do it. But they got some guys that will go get the ball, create turnovers. And when we start getting in these tighter games, they're going to have opportunities to do that because people are going to be throwing the ball. So you're right. You can't say enough about what they've done. Stay humble. I think they will. Keep working hard. But this is a team, if I'm an opposing coach, this isn't someone I'm real excited about seeing first round of the playoffs.
Absolutely. Thanks to you, Page moves to 3-2. They used you as locker room material because you picked BGA in this win, but they must have missed a memo over there at BGA because the Patriots flat put the smack down on BGA 45-7. I don't think anybody saw this coming, but this is the best thing that could have happened to Coach Rathbone and his club right now to get a good signature statement win against a non-conference opponent such as BGA 45-7. I know that the Vincent Victories, I know he picked Page as well. I mean, right now, Patriots have turned that ship around, looking pretty good.
It's a big win. Big win. They needed it, and I told Coach Rathbone over the weekend I couldn't be happier to be wrong on a pick 'em, man. I'm glad they won. But
did your Twitter feed blow up?
No, I didn't get assaulted on Twitter. They were pretty nice to me. So.
Okay.
But 45-7. I mean, you picked them, but you didn't think they were going to win 45-7.
No, I did not. I thought it would be like a classic BGA Page matchup, come down to a 2-point conversion or something at the end. When I kept watching the scoreboard, I was blown away at the fact that they must have been playing extremely well. Van Landingham and crew rolling right over BGA.
Oh, without a doubt. And then Bubba Johnson, the freshman, he's told us all year long this guy is going to be the real deal, over 138 yards. And, again, this is against a good BGA team. So fun to see that. Van Landingham played very well running the offense, struck him through the air and also on the ground running the ball. So, but I think the thing that he was most happy about is the way his defense played. BGA was averaging the last 4 games well over 30 points a game, over 40-some, and against some good teams. They've got some athletes, and to hold them to 7 points, played really, really well. Your man Brent Samaglia, 40-yard field goal, UT commit, and he talked about that this weekend as well. I don't think he gave them the opportunity. I don't think they got a chance to have a return. He hit it in the end zone every time. Obviously, with 45 points, he had a lot of kickoffs, so every single one of them went to the end zone. He played very well, too. Playoff football gets a little bit colder. You better be able to run the ball. Looks like we got that figured out, and we know we got a kicker.
Well, Page moves to 3-2. They're 2-0 in the region right now. They still have some big games coming up, Marshall County, et cetera, Giles County as well. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Summit Old Sparty had the bye, getting themselves ready to go for their last push. They've got to have this. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Fairview. What about the Yellow Jackets? What a story right now. Coach Chris Hughes has got the Yellow Jackets stinging and rolling, man, because they're sitting at 5-0 right now, 1-0 in the region. They beat my alma mater, Hickman County, 64-20. I'm sitting on the sideline. I will go to the game. My phone's blowing up. People asking me, is that you on the 30-yard line? Absolutely it is. And, it's just – it's unbelievable to watch them play right now. Now, Hickman County is down. Hickman County didn't have a whole lot of fight in them. But this bunch right here is out for blood, looking good. Jake Bethard right now playing extremely well. Cameron Lusk playing extremely well. Their defense is playing good. Gave up a few long runs, a couple missed assignments on some simple drag plays across the middle where they sucked up a little bit and got behind them, and that's how they scored. But other than that, they pretty much played solid football. The score was 56-14 at half.
They're playing great ball right now, and 56 points and a half. That's, you mentioned Hickman County being down. That's hard to do against air, So I don't care how down they are, 56 points. And you're right. We talk about the job that the Centennial guys are doing. I think you got to put Coach Hughes and his staff in there in that same conversation for, they're all doing a great job. But if there was a Coach of the Year right now, those two got to be at the top, sitting there undefeated, playing really, really well. And you're right, Jake Beathard, he's a guy who he's a difference maker on any division. And 3 touchdowns the other night. And again, I don't know for sure you were there. I'm sure he didn't play in the second half. So, or if he did, very one
little.
series in the third quarter. So he's doing all that in 2 quarters of play. And kudos to Coach Hughes and the offensive staff. They find ways to get him the ball. And then they got some other, Ortiz is playing very well. Cam Harris-Lusk, the sophomore quarterback, this is what's great about it. They haven't had to ask him to win any games for him yet. He just keeps getting better and better and better. This is going to be, I think if things stay healthy, come playoff time, this team's got a chance to make a run now.
Well, Fairview has moved to number 3 in the polls right now in the small schools standings.
Who's won? Stratford?
I wish you wouldn't have asked. I have to go back and look. I think Stratford is up there. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they're sitting at number 3 in the mid-state small school polls right now. 64-20 is what they end up winning by the other night. Now you got to think, in the last 4 weeks in football, we've had the WCS scoring record in jeopardy. Summit 71, the record is 72 by Page back in 06. 64 right there.
How'd you find that out?
I was informed by the Page crowd, and I'm glad so. I'm glad that they did because I looked for it. I didn't look deep enough. I didn't go far back enough.
They had to do some digging.
And at halftime he's sitting at 56, and I was thinking, man, I wonder what he's going to do here. But with a running clock second half, it's pretty hard to do. If he had one more touchdown right before half, he may have had a shot. But that's not one of those things you go in the second half thinking about trying to break.
Right.
But congratulations to Fairview, man. I love to watch the support that he has in that community. You start off with about 6 coaches. Now he's got 27. And when you win, that's what happens. People come out, and Coach Hughes is very appreciative of the fact that he's got people. He's got video coordinators out there now. He's got more than Big Six. He's on par with Independence and Coach Blade. Next time he comes in, he's going to have a rap sheet to tell who all his coaches are. So, it's a good thing.
I'll take up the whole first segment.
It's fun to watch, and I'm happy for him in all seriousness. Indy had to bye. Franklin also had to bye. Nolensville with a big win over Overton and JV. That moves them to 4-1, 34-20. Right now, Coach Hester, the Visor's looking pretty good with a big game coming up against BA.
Whoo! And Centennial beat them the other day.
Sure
so
did.
The pressure's really on now. Hopefully he and Coach Kreisky will get together and talk a little bit. But, things are coming along nicely. I don't think anybody doubted that it won't take them very long to get going. But, they'll have juniors next year, and I can't wait for next year for them to jump in there. They're going to be in there with the Marshall counties, right, in that region when they start next year?
That could be a proposal. We'll have to wait until November.
Yet. That's right.
November.
But there's a good chance. That will be fun, man, because I think they can jump right in there and compete, and they'll add to that district too. So, but, they just keep getting better, and, they're getting coached really, really well. That Mill Creek, talk about, I know this is the high school show, but Mill Creek, 3 or 4 wins. This is their first year, and a big part of that is those guys are all coaching them together. So they're getting they're getting some really good coaching. They're getting better. It's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully they can knock one off against BA. But I would think they got a good chance. They got a pretty good quarterback.
If they happen to run the table, JV-wise, forget the South Gibson game, I'm counting it as a state championship on the JV level for Nolensville High School. So, all right, now it's time to really change gears for a second. Okay, this is something we haven't done on the show before. It's time to look ahead, the Adidas crystal ball, if you will.
We need a crystal ball up here.
So let's look. We've got roughly about 5-6 weeks to go right here. 5 weeks to go. These games are huge, particularly this week's games. We're going to skip this week's games, come back to that for the pick'em section. Let's go ahead and talk about right now, October the 6th, big games. I want you to give me a WL or question mark when we start looking at these games. Right now, first off, let's look at region play. Region play right now, as it sits, you already discussed in Region 3, 6A, everybody gets in. Franklin's sitting in first place right now. Tied for second is a three-way tie between Overton, Mount Juliet, Wilson Central. Mount Juliet, if you remember, Ravenwood's got a win over them so far. Wilson Central loses their first game this week. Ravenwood sitting in fifth place right now. That is for seeding purposes only. That's going to kind of work itself out. Region 7, 5A. Right now, if the playoffs started tomorrow, here are your teams in. Rossview, Centennial, Henry County, and Brentwood by the skin of their teeth. Right now, as it sits, Region 5, 5A, right now, Stewart's Creek and Independence right now tied for first place. They haven't lost a region game yet. Here is your battle for the last two spots in the playoffs right here. Three-way tie, Laverne, Summit, Shelbyville. Shelbyville's pretty much out. Take them out of the equation. Summit's already beat them. And Franklin County. How important are those games going to be for Summit? We'll get that in just a second. Region 4, 4A. Page is in his first way tie with Marshall County. They have yet to play each other. Giles County, Spring Hill ran out those top four. Fairview right now sitting in first place with Camden. That game is huge on October the 21st against them. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Sycamore, Cheatham County round out that. So right there's kind of your playoff picture. So let's go down the list and look. Right now, October the 6th, Franklin hosts Wilson Central. How big is this game?
Huge. And Mount Juliet is actually the one that handed Wilson Central their loss. They beat them in overtime. They had to come back. They scored 25 points in the fourth quarter just to put it into overtime, and they got the win. But the thing about Wilson Central is they got a high-powered offense, maybe the most high-powered offense Franklin will see all year. So it's a huge game. It gives them one more leg up and distance them from the rest of the pack to get first place in that region. They want that, so they want to make sure in 6A you want to make sure you're home in the first and second rounds if you can be. So it's a big game. I think Franklin will be able to score points against them, but their defense is going to have to play well because Wilson Central, even in the loss to Mount Juliet, they can put up yards and they can put it up quick.
I truly think that's what stands between Franklin going 9-1 and 8-2 this game right here.
You're right.
And for time's sake, we're going to have to skip out on Franklin Ravenwood the rest of the conversation just for time's sake because they're already in. We'll touch base on their games where they can fall out for seeding purposes, but let's go straight into the meat of the problem here. Summit, Franklin County. This is a must-win for Old Sparty, including this week's game, who we'll talk about in just a moment, but you got to talk about Summit Laverne.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, let's hit that right now. Summit Laverne this week, I cannot express how big this is a win for them. They need to get this win right here to almost solidify themselves getting in the playoffs. They beat Laverne last year. The surprise is over for Summit. Laverne will be sitting in the weeds, if you will, waiting for them.
Yeah, it's a huge game. Don't think Laverne doesn't remember it was an upset last year, giving up the upset to Summit last year. This is a team that's hard to figure out. You know, they got 2 5-star recruits. One of them's already done for the season due to an injury, but they still got Malik Gray, who is the best player Summit will see all year long, including the guys at Indy. I mean, no disrespect. The guy's a freak. But Laverne's lost some games that just don't make sense. Fall break is next week for Laverne. There's a part of me that thinks these guys are just ready to go on to fall break. So I think if Summit comes out and plays well early, don't let Laverne get confidence early on. I think it'll be a game they can handle.
Real quick, there's another huge game this week. I think the only thing that stands in the way of Coach Blade going undefeated this year could possibly be Stewart's Creek. I still have them with the W there, but it's not going to be – it could be a tough win for them. But this is a huge game as well, you know, for Coach Blade. You know what? I got to say this. I am sick and I am tired of looking at these ridiculous polls.
I knew this was
coming. I'm sick and tired of it. It's got to be said. Until somebody beats them, how can you have other people ahead of them? Until somebody beats them. I don't care if you've got 7 SEC commits. Until somebody beats them, how can you put them ahead of them? I'm done. What do you think, Stewart's Creek?
Who wins the game? Or
No.
just – I don't think Stewart's Creek's played the meat of the schedule yet. So they've got some nice wins, but they've also if this kind of helps you paint a picture, Smyrna scored 65 points on TV the first or second week of the year against Stewart's Creek, and they could have scored 100. It looked like you and I could have run through those holes. So, and that's not a knock at them, but they haven't played the tough part of the schedule yet. So I don't know that they're as good as their record shows. and they have a hard time figuring out how to defense Independence. So I don't think Stewart's Creek's in this conversation at the end of the year.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, classic, when I'm talking about these rankings, Smyrna right now is ranked higher than Franklin in 6A football. I find that really hard to believe. But, you know, that's apples and oranges.
Right.
But that'll play itself out.
The doctor doesn't care about polls.
And he doesn't, and it shouldn't to me. But come on, people.
I get it. I understand.
So, all right, let's look on down the schedule here. The last 3 games of the schedule in Region 7-5A are going to be absolutely humongous. Centennial Brentwood, okay, Brentwood Henry County, and then you've got Henry County Centennial, all 3 in the last week. Now, those games are really not going to hurt them if Brentwood takes care of business with the other teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned those 4 teams right now. They're the ones that are in. I think at the beginning of the year, those are the 4 that we thought would be in. We just didn't think it would be in that order. The Rossview victory over Brentwood, I don't think many people saw. But I think we all thought these were the 4 that were going to be in. Brentwood just needs to get in right now. They don't need to worry about home playoff right now because right now it's going to be a long shot for them to get it. But get a 3rd or 4th round game, kind of like they did last year, go on the road and beat somebody, and they'll be fine.
And I'm going to be honest with you, it's pretty much going to come up to next week. Next week is Brentwood versus Clarksville at Clarksville, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And they're going to have to beat them to go ahead and get in because in those last 3 games, them will be for seeding purposes. All right, here we go. This week, Brentwood, West Creek. Who do you have?
Oh, Brentwood. This is a game they need. West Creek just can't match up. Go out, get some confidence, get better. Brentwood.
Absolutely. And Franklin hosting Antioch. I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's going to be a running clock at halftime.
This one could be bad. Coach Woodward at Antioch, he's made them better, but they're not good enough yet. The Rebels.
Centennial, Clarksville.
Centennial keeps the win streak going, and I think they'll do it again. They'll put up a lot of points again this week.
This one's a little scary to me. I don't want this to be a trap game. Coach Kreisky, I think they'll be on point. Make sure we stay focused here. I still think they get a close win on that. McGavick, Ravenwood.
It's a tough one. I'm going to go with Ravenwood, but McGavick's got some athletes. Again, Ravenwood has to find a running game, but I'm going to go with the Raptors.
I think the Raptors get this when they get back on the horse to get where they need to be. Fairview, Cheatham County.
Running clock. The Yellow Jackets.
Wow. Coach Hughes, I was not even going to give you that much love.
Running clock.
I think this is a little harder win than you think. I think this is a tough fought win for the Jackets, a good tester, but they come out on top. I don't know about the running clock. I hope you prove me wrong on that. All right, Tullahoma, Page.
Patriots.
Absolutely, Patriots keep rolling. All right, we've got 2 big games right here. The last I left for last, Indy, Stewart's Creek.
Running clock. Book it.
Okay.
The Eagles. Do I need to say that?
No. I'm with you. Independence wins there. We haven't had a running clock yet for them, I think, but 1 game. I'm not sure it's a running clock. I hope it is. I need to get those running clock games so we can breathe a little bit better and get back to normalcy. Last, Old Sparty, Laverne, biggest game of the year.
Old Sparty.
Old Sparty. I don't think we differed on anything, Creed, so it's going to keep – if we do this all the way out, I'm going to win it. You have to see next week.
B.A. Nolensville.
B.A. Nolensville. You're going to pick B.A. I've got the
B.A.
Hester all the way. That's going to be the difference maker. You heard that, Visor. He picked B.A. Come back to us next week. We'll tell you how we did. Thank you for joining us on WCS Sports Connection.